Today, I would like to ask you to pause for a moment, to stop in the middle of the noise of your thoughts and calmly listen to what your intuition has been trying to tell you for some time now. It is very likely that in the past few days, or perhaps even in the last few hours, you have felt an inexplicable restlessness, a pressure in your chest, or a sudden thought appearing out of nowhere that connects you to a certain person. Perhaps you've had the feeling that despite the physical distance or the apparent silence on the surface, an invisible conversation is taking place on a deeper level. Yet you are not imagining this. This restlessness is not the product of your anxiety, nor is it the expression of a desperate desire to hold on to the past. It is the echo of an energy moving toward you. It is no coincidence that you are hearing this now. In the world of energy and vibration, there are no coincidences and no empty encounters. If you've come this far, it's because your own spirit has asked for a sign, for confirmation of what you already sensed, but what your logical mind tried to suppress out of fear of yet another disappointment. Your soul perceives subtle vibrations, waves of information that travel faster than any message or phone call. And these waves are telling you that the story you believed to be stuck or over is on the verge of taking a radical turn. I know the road to this moment hasn't been easy. You've lived through nights filled with doubt, asking yourself 1,000 times whether you should finally let go, whether you waited in vain, or whether you simply idealized a connection that existed only in your mind. Have you felt the emotional exhaustion that comes from believing in something when visible reality shows only absence? But today I want to tell you, nothing you feel is in vain. That persistence in your heart, that inability to completely close the door, is not stubbornness. It is your inner compass, telling you that the cycle isn't over yet because the purpose of this connection has not been fulfilled. What you are sensing now is the prelude to manifestation. Often, just before something significant begins to move on the physical plane, one feels an inexplicable emotional unease, like the tense calm before the sea pulls back to form a great wave. That is exactly the moment you are in now. The energy has shifted. Where once there was an impenetrable wall of silence, subtle cracks are beginning to open, allowing the light of truth to seep through. Your presence in this person's life, even if you are not physically there, has become impossible to overlook. It is essential that you understand. You are not waiting for someone who is indifferent. You are not waiting for someone who has forgotten you or moved on without a backward glance. The truth is far more complex and profound. While you have wrestled with your doubts, an intense, almost spiritual intervention has been taking place on the other side of this connection. The universe has been working in secret, deep within, in the hidden chambers of consciousness that no one else can access, preparing the ground for what is to come. This person is now feeling something they can no longer hide or suppress. The reason you have been sensing such a strong connection lately is that the resistance on the other side is beginning to dissolve. The walls this person built out of fear, pride, or uncertainty are starting to collapse, not because of an external force, but under the inevitable weight of truth. And that truth is that the connection between you has roots that go far beyond logic. It is a spiritual root that time cannot sever. But to understand why this return is now inevitable, and why the movement that is beginning will be different from all previous attempts, we must first look with compassion and clarity at what has been happening in this person's mind and soul during their silence. We must understand the storm that was unleashed within them as they tried to live as if you didn't exist. If you are ready to integrate this understanding into your life, tell yourself inwardly, I trust the process. There is someone who has moved with great caution, someone who has been observing you from afar, caught between their fears and an attraction they have tried in vain to suppress. During your separation, this person has lived in a draining duality. Outwardly, they may have projected an image of calm and control. Perhaps they even wanted to show that their life was going on as normal. They put on a social mask to convince the world, and most of all themselves, that the decision to pull away was the right one. But that mask has become unbearably heavy. What no one saw and what is being revealed to you today for your inner peace is the inner battle they have fought night after night. This person tried to resist. They wanted to justify with logic that it was better to keep their distance. They searched for reasons to explain the separation, telling themselves it was the most sensible, the safest thing to do. They did it out of pride, out of fear of failure, or out of a paralyzing fear of losing control over their emotions. Sometimes people don't walk away because they don't love. They walk away because they don't know how to handle the intensity of a love that completely exposes them. They leave because they believe they are incapable of loving without hurting or being hurt. But when the universe has a plan and aligns two paths, no mental strategy can withstand it. The energy of truth has begun to erode these defenses. This person has realized that their life without your energy has become grey, flavorless, lifeless. They have begun to feel a deep inauthenticity, as if they were playing a role in a play that no longer interests them. Every time they tried with all their might to move in the opposite direction, something invisible held them back, like an unseen handbrake, and mentally brought them back to you again and again. This is not mere romantic nostalgia, it is an identity crisis triggered by the awakening of consciousness. This person has had sleepless nights when your name appeared uninvited in their mind, moments when they tried to focus on work or daily life, but suddenly a memory of you would arise, vivid, clear, overwhelming. In that secret space of their mind, the universe has stirred memories, ignited courage, and shown them again and again what you truly mean. Imagine for a moment the exhaustion of swimming against the current of one's own destiny. That is exactly what this person has experienced. They fought against the force of a bond that cannot be broken and ultimately realized that the control they believed they had was nothing more than an illusion. They realized that avoiding you did not bring them freedom, but instead trapped them even deeper in a state of silent longing. What they once ignored, they now recognize with frightening clarity. What they once avoided, they now face because there is no longer any place to hide. There were moments when they desperately tried to silence that inner voice, seeking distractions, connections, noise, to drown out the silence you left behind. They compared you, even if they would never admit it, the depth of your gaze with the superficiality of other encounters. The calm they felt by your side with the restlessness they felt elsewhere. And in every comparison, they lost. Or rather, the truth won, that your place in their life is irreplaceable. These experiences did not take them further away from you. They served as a merciless mirror. They showed them that they can never find elsewhere what you gave them on a spiritual level. They sought distraction and found emptiness, and finally understood that what comes from destiny cannot be replaced by dull noise. This inability to forget you is not a weakness. It is the clearest sign that you hold a place in their life that is meant for you alone. The emptiness they felt while trying to replace you became their strictest teacher and taught them that there are connections that cannot be subjected to the logic of substitution. Now, this structure built of ego and fear is collapsing. What once seemed like an insurmountable wall of pride is turning into a bridge of humility. This person is beginning to reflect on their own behavior, to analyze their mistakes, not to condemn themselves, but to understand. They remember past conversations, moments when you reached out your hand and they did not take it. Now they see with painful but necessary clarity the true value you hold in their life, and this collapse of the ego is crucial. Without it, any return would have been superficial and short-lived. But what is happening now is a transformation at the root. This person realizes that letting you go would be the greatest mistake of their life. The confusion that once reigned has given way to a new certainty, the certainty that running away is no longer an option. And at that very moment of vulnerability, when all excuses were exhausted, they surrendered to what they felt. They sought one last substitute, only to confront the unavoidable truth that transformed their resistance into surrender. There is a universal law that we often overlook in the pain of separation, the law of contrast. Sometimes the universe allows someone to leave, not so they lose you, but so that through the stark difference between your energy and that of the rest of life, they recognize who you truly are in their existence. That is precisely what this person is experiencing now. When they left your energetic field, they thought they would find freedom or perhaps something lighter, less emotionally demanding. But instead they encountered a deafening contrast that taught them to appreciate what they once took for granted. During this period of silence, they tried to connect with other energies, not necessarily in a romantic sense, but in search of company, validation, or simple distraction from everyday life. Yet here the uniqueness of your vibration became evident. Every time they tried to form a connection with someone else, they felt an inner heaviness, an emptiness. Conversations felt shallow, lacking the mental and spiritual depth that flowed so effortlessly with you. Where silence with you meant understanding, with others it only brought noise and the exhausting need to explain themselves. This experience was frustrating yet deeply illuminating. They realized that your presence was not just pleasant company but an energetic sanctuary. Almost unconsciously they began to compare the peace they felt by your side with the restlessness and indifference of others. They remember the way you listened, the full attention you gave, your patience, and that special light within you that always sees the good in others, even when they cannot see it themselves. In the face of the coldness and superficiality of the outside world, the memory of you has become a warm beacon for them, a place they long to return to. What they feel now is not a simple emotional void that anyone could fill. It is an emptiness with a very specific shape, yours. They have realized that fleeting experiences and worldly distractions may occupy time, but they cannot nourish the soul. They feel like a stranger in their own life, trying to fit into situations that no longer resonate with their vibration. It is as if they were trying to insert an old key into a new lock. It doesn't fit, it doesn't turn, it opens nothing. This cognitive and emotional dissonance has screamed a truth they long tried to suppress. You were never just another option in their life, but an essential part of their spiritual balance. A kind of cellular memory has been activated within them, the memory of what it means to feel at home. When two souls connect on the level where you met, a shared, energetic home is created, an invisible space where both can lay down their masks and be authentic. This person has realized that outside this space you created together, they are defenseless and weary. The supposed comfort of withdrawal has become a burden, for nothing is more exhausting than trying to appear strong in places where the soul finds no peace. This process of comparison was painful for their ego, which wanted to prove it could move on without you. But for their soul, it was healing. It taught them to distinguish between fleeting shine and true gold. Now they know that the connection with you is of rare quality, a spiritual substance not found at every corner. They now understand chemistry can be felt with many, but alchemy, the kind that transforms and elevates, was something they experienced only with you. This realization has turned their flight into a desire to return, not out of dependency, but out of a clear awareness of your worth. The longing they feel now is not a passive sadness about the past, but an active force driving them to rediscover the state of grace they once experienced with you. They have realized that their life is clearer, more vibrant, and more authentic when you are part of it. The emptiness left by your respectful withdrawal has become a powerful presence in their everyday life. Your absence has spoken louder than any words, and this realization has awakened in them an ancient memory, the remembrance that what exists between you did not arise from a random encounter in this lifetime, but follows a much older, deeper law. To grasp the magnitude of what is about to unfold, we must expand our perspective. It is not enough to view this story solely from a human or psychological standpoint. We must see it through the mechanics of spirit. What connects you is not coincidence. You did not meet because you happened to visit the same places or share mutual acquaintances. You are part of a greater design, protagonists of what is often called a soul contract. Long before your paths crossed on this physical plane, your energies had already recognized each other. There exists an invisible contract, a silent promise made in eternity, that you would find one another to accelerate each other's evolution. That is why your connection felt so intense and familiar from the very first moment. You did not meet, you remembered each other. Yet part of that agreement often includes a phase of separation, not as punishment from the universe, not as a sign of failure, but as a necessary period of inner learning. The distance you have experienced was not a flaw in the system. It was a conscious pause, orchestrated by the wisdom of life itself. Both of you needed that space to integrate lessons that could not have been learned together at that stage. Perhaps this person had to confront their own shadows in solitude to stop projecting them onto you. And perhaps you needed to reclaim your own strength and understand that your happiness does not depend on another's presence. This separation was the crucible in which the impurities of dependency and fear were burned away, a preparation for a more mature and conscious union. Understand this. In the quantum world of energy, physical distance is an illusion. There exists an invisible red thread, an indestructible energetic bond that connects you, regardless of miles or silence. This thread can stretch, it can tangle, but it never breaks. It functions like an elastic band. The more one of you tries to move in the opposite direction, the greater the tension becomes. And eventually, that tension reaches an energetic breaking point. When it becomes unbearable, the law of spiritual physics takes hold and inevitably pulls the person back to their center of gravity, to you. Here lies the crucial role you have played recently, perhaps far greater than you realize. It is very likely that you have recently experienced a moment of surrender when you decided to stop forcing, stop chasing, and instead focus on yourself. By withdrawing your energy from pursuit and redirecting it toward your own well-being, you change the polarity of the connection. You stopped sending the vibration of lack and began radiating the vibration of abundance. In doing so, you activated the law of the void. The universe abhors a vacuum. It will always seek to fill it. When you stopped filling this person's energetic space with your expectation and impatience, an open space was created. And it is precisely within that space, within that silence, that the other person has begun to feel their own truth. Your non-action was the most powerful action you could have taken. By releasing control, you allowed the universe to do its work. You created a magnetic vacuum that now draws this person back to you with renewed strength. They feel this magnetic pull, not rationally, but deep within the body, in the solar plexus, in their dreams, in quiet moments. They feel that something is missing, and they know exactly what it is. This is the physics of souls seeking their balance. The resistance they once maintained has been overcome by the gravitational pull of this particular love. For soul contracts contain an inevitable clause of fulfillment. When two beings have agreed to grow together, the universe will, through coincidences, synchronicities, and inner movements, ensure that their paths cross again. The phase of solitude as training is coming to an end because the purpose of the separation has been fulfilled. You have both learned what you needed to learn apart. Now the natural cycle calls for reunion. The energy that was once scattered is gathering again to form something stronger, steadier, and more radiant than ever before. And since energy knows no boundaries and no linear time, this reunion is already taking place on subtle levels. It sends out energetic waves that manifest as physical sensations or telepathic impressions. It is very likely that in recent days you have received subtle signs of this process of reconnection, signals that your rational mind tries to ignore, but that your heart has registered with unfailing precision. In this phase of your journey, it is essential to pay attention to the delicate details that appear around you. The universe communicates in its own way when a manifestation is about to occur. Perhaps you have experienced it. In the middle of your daily routine, while your mind was occupied with trivial matters, you were suddenly overcome by the intense feeling of this person's presence. What you're experiencing is not a deliberate memory. You did not consciously choose to think of this person. It feels instead as if someone entered the room without opening the door. You sense their energy, their essence, almost as if you could reach out your hand and touch them. This is not a fantasy of your imagination, but a confirmation of the energetic activity taking place on the other side of your bond. We live in a universe filled with information, and when two people share a deep connection, their energy fields remain intertwined beyond physical distance. What you feel are waves of thought directed toward you with such intensity that your own system receives them as if they were your own. Perhaps you have recently experienced sudden emotional shifts without any apparent reason, moments when you were calm and then suddenly struck by a wave of deep sadness, or conversely, moments of inexplicable joy and hope. Know that these feelings often do not belong to you. Like an antenna, you are perceiving what the other person is feeling during their awakening process, their regret, their longing, their growing desire to see you again. Another unmistakable sign that the reunion is being prepared lies in numerical and auditory synchronicities. The universe speaks in numbers and vibrations. When you repeatedly see number sequences such as 1111, 222, or other patterns that hold personal meaning for you, take them seriously. They are alignment codes, indicators that you are on the right path and that divine timing is unfolding. It may also happen that you hear their name mentioned by chance in conversations on the street, or that a song meaningful to both of you suddenly plays on the radio or in a playlist, precisely in the moments when you are about to give up hope. The universe uses such signs to ask you for patience and to remind you that the red thread between you is still active. Your physical senses can also reveal spiritual truths. Many people report in such circumstances perceiving the scent of this person in places where they could not possibly be, or feeling a familiar touch, a warmth that sends shivers down their spine. This happens because their energy is directed toward you with such strength and clarity that your body begins to translate that vibration into tangible sensory impressions. This person is thinking of you so intensely that they almost take form in your surroundings before they physically reappear. They project their consciousness toward you because their soul cannot find peace while being away from your frequency. Even in the dream world, this connection manifests as telepathy. If you notice that they appear more often in your dreams, not in chaotic or distressing scenes, but in vivid dreams filled with calm conversation and unspoken truths, pay attention. These encounters are real meetings on the astral plane where ego and pride have no access. There, your souls are already negotiating the new beginning, healing old wounds and aligning for the next phase. If, upon waking, you feel a sense of peace and certainty, it is because the agreement has already been made on a higher level. Only the material reality, which always moves more slowly, must now adjust to mirror that truth. But perhaps the clearest sign that movement is imminent is the change in your own inner calm. For a long time, waiting was accompanied by restlessness and the yearning for confirmation. Yet when manifestation draws near, that restlessness transforms into deep, quiet certainty. A gentle voice within you tells you that you no longer need to run, no longer need to search. You sense that everything is already underway. This calm is not resignation. It is the awareness of one who knows that what belongs to them is already on its way. It is your spirit recognizing that the universe has already sent the delivery. It is only a matter of time before it arrives. These signs are not meant to torment you or trap you in illusion. They are beacons in the fog. The universe is speaking clearly to you. What was hidden is coming to light. The silence is breaking, and the blocked energy is beginning to flow. This person is receiving the same signals, feeling the same call, and even though their mind still resists, their soul has already decided to return home. You are now decoding the prelude to a great event. Your ability to remain calm and to trust these signs is the key that opens the final gateway, so that this person may find the courage to take the step. At this point, I invite you to pause consciously. Take a deep breath and let this message sink in. I know that such confirmation can stir many emotions, from hope to the fear of believing again. But remember this, energy moves not only through thoughts or emotions, but also through what we affirm and welcome as truth into our lives. Words and clear intention hold the power to anchor in the physical what already exists in the spiritual. Sometimes the universe is only waiting for your unequivocal yes to remove the final obstacles. Understand, you are a co-creator of your destiny. This person is being drawn to you, yes, but your willingness to receive them is the key that unlocks the door. If, deep in your heart, there are still walls of resentment, doubt, or disbelief, they act like a shield that deflects the energy trying to reach you. That is why this moment is crucial, to clear the channel and declare your openness. It is not about magic, it is about alignment. When you declare that you are ready to receive, you send out a powerful signal that dissolves the remaining resistance within the other person. That is why I ask something simple, yet incredibly powerful of you. If you feel that these words resonate with your truth, if your intuition tells you that this message has reached you because this is your moment, then engage with this energy to help it materialize. I invite you, in thought, to speak an affirming statement, a kind of signature beneath this new soul contract. Say to yourself, I lovingly receive the restoration of my connection, or simply, I receive. You are not writing something random in the air, you are setting a psychomagical seal. You are declaring to the universe and to your subconscious that you accept the return, that you allow healing, and that your door is open to what rightfully belongs to you in consciousness. When others do the same, a collective field of resonance forms, amplifying the manifestation for everyone. Never underestimate the power of affirming your own worthiness. Often, the only thing that keeps a miracle from arriving is the feeling of being undeserving, or the unconscious fear that it truly could happen. With your affirmation, you break through that fear and align yourself with the triumph of love over ego. You transform a passive desire into an active, magnetic expectation. As you affirm this truth and center your energy, something significant begins to happen within the other person. Through your aligned energy and conscious permission, the last energetic resistance that held them back starts to dissolve. The remaining doubt turns into urgency. For once the receiver is ready, the sender feels the irresistible impulse to deliver the message. Right after your inner yes, the dynamics of fear begin to shift. The other person no longer fears closeness, but rather the possibility of losing you forever. In every soul connection, there is a turning point where the polarity of fear completely reverses. For a long time, the fear of intimacy, of vulnerability, of losing control was the driving force behind the distance. But now that fear has been replaced by a greater and more powerful one, the fear of losing you for good. As you have worked on your energy, raised your vibration, and reached a state of acceptance and peace, something in their perception has changed. They sense that you are pulling away, not physically but energetically. They feel that you are reclaiming your power, that you are becoming whole, and that you are no longer waiting endlessly. This awareness has triggered every inner alarm. They recognize your growth, even without seeing you. The connection between you constantly transmits information, and what they are now receiving is the image of someone who shines from within, someone who is growing, moving forward, and perhaps soon to be found by another who is ready to recognize that worth. The mere thought of watching your energy drift away, or worse, knowing that someone else might receive and cherish it, has deeply shaken them. They now understand that their time is not infinite, and that the patience you have shown has its limits. This realization has transformed their passivity into a soulful urgency that no longer allows them to remain still. Meanwhile, the universe is working quietly in the background to clear the path. It is very likely that in the past, external influences complicated the situation. People, opinions, obligations, or social circumstances that served as excuses to keep their distance. But if you look closely, you'll notice that many of those obstacles are now beginning to fade or lose their power. Now, as these outer structures begin to crumble, the path finally becomes visible, clearer, more direct, unstoppable.
What once felt like an endless maze of hesitation and confusion is now aligning into a clear direction. Without noise or announcement, circumstances are shifting. Influences that once created uncertainty are naturally falling away. Situations that seemed impossible to resolve are quietly loosening their grip. This is not chance, it is alignment.
The inner and outer worlds are adjusting to make space for what has been waiting to unfold. The person connected to this journey is reaching a point where delay is no longer an option. The decision has already formed within them, the heart has accepted it. Now the courage to act is gathering momentum. When movement finally happens, it will not feel sudden or dramatic. It will feel familiar, as if something long known is finally being acknowledged.
Your role now is simple but powerful. Remain grounded in trust. Continue choosing openness over control. There is nothing you need to chase or prove. Life itself is completing the pattern. What approaches is not a return to what was, but a continuation shaped by growth and awareness. A beginning rooted in honesty, maturity, and truth. Allow it to arrive naturally. Love does not rush. It moves in its own time, and that timing is already in motion.